All right, here we are. Might be some latency between what I'm doing and what people are seeing, but we'll see. Have not used YouTube a bunch for streaming purposes, so we'll see. Yeah, it looks like we're on maybe a 10 or 10-second delay or something. That's okay. Um, anyway, welcome to Travail Office Hours. This is the first one. I'll keep doing these as often as people have questions. Um, yeah, excited to be here. Just take a quick look. So there is a link um, attached to the video for submitting questions. Let's get that link here. So if you go to that link, you can submit a question here, right? Shows up there. I'll have it up on my screen watching for new questions too. When we get to them, you can click a little button here. It'll highlight the one we're talking about, and then we're done. Boom, complete it. Okay. I haven't had issues with this mic before, but I'll give it a shot. Maybe I'm just not speaking clearly enough into the thing or something. All right, good. Yeah, I think there were some issues at first with streaming via YouTube for the first time. I know it took me a couple days to go through their full process of everything. And even now, I can't put clickable links in descriptions yet. There's something in the way of that. Um, so yeah, growing pains, technology pains. So yeah, if anyone has any questions at any point, you can drop them in the chat over on YouTube, or you can use the link on the video to get to the Slido room, and you can drop questions there. I'll be keeping an eye on that in the background too. Otherwise, what do we got? We're going to start by going through the wiki. We're going to talk about what its purpose is a little bit, and then we will talk about how to use it and do a quick walkthrough. Yeah. So let's see. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you, Joe. Glad that folks are here. Hopefully, people can get some use out of this time. Okay, so we have the wiki here. I am currently not logged in. I'm in a sweet incognito window here. So if I were a new person going to the wiki for the first time, this is what I would be seeing. So there are some of these links are limited, right? We want people generally to be logged in order to interact with this. It just keeps a log of what's going on and prevents bots from coming in and posting stuff. Bots love to find wikis and stuff online and just sort of create content on there. So this just sort of gets out in front of that and prevents a bunch of it. So the purpose of the wiki is to be the location that once you are a player at the game, this is sort of your one-stop shop for anything that you would need. The website travaillarp.com is for learning about the game, going to like purchase tickets and stuff because our e-commerce is going to be excuse me, our e-commerce is going to be integrated through there, nice and easy for us. On that topic, we finally got our business bank account literally last night. I didn't have time today to get things set up, but this week we'll get tickets set up on there so that people can buy tickets and all that good stuff. So, but once you're a player, if you want to do anything sort of game related, anything related to your character, or anything related to looking up game info, submitting things, you will come to the Travail Wiki, so you will learn to love this place. Hopefully, this will host not just all of the worlds that are in the game. Well, so primarily, like our world list will be worlds that players can create characters from. That will have a separate place to create entries for worlds that player characters are like not from. So like worlds that the staff writes like for plot purposes, but are like not a place that you would play a player character from for whatever reason. And that will make its way in there over time, slowly over time. But so it'll host worlds, characters. So like your character sheets will be in here. I'll show off a character sheet tonight. We're going to go through and generate a character, and then I'll get the character sheet set up, and I can show you what that's going to look like for you. And player profiles that we'll use while writing plot, and designing encounters and doing things like setting up like the menu for food for the event and stuff. Having all of that in one place for us lets us query everything from a single location. It's also all hosted on our own application server, so we're not sort of bound by Google's data, anything. It's not sitting in Google Drive somewhere. It's not sitting on any other platform. This is our own instance of this software on our own application server, which is awesome. That is what we want. Okay, so and then character history, sort of character histories last, and we'll take a look at all of these forms. We won't fill all of them out. We won't like make a world and stuff, but we'll take a look at the form, and we can take a look at what a completed world looks like. And I don't think there's no character histories in here yet, but we can take a look at the form anyway. So for now, let's say we need to create a new account. And so I'll put my email address in. Oops. This will be test user 3. Created a couple test users before. So this like personal contact form, don't worry about it too much. I don't think we're going to use it. Yeah. So you can leave it checked. I guess there's an off chance that we might use it to communicate with players at some point. If let's say we gave somebody edit access to like a specific page to do something on, then we might just keep the contact stuff like internal to the wiki, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. So I'm just going to check that box. This test user doesn't need to receive anything, any messages from other users or anything. So I'll click create account here. All right, so this gives me a nice little message, right? Thank you for applying, blah, blah, blah. So now I'm going to hop over to my email where I can approve this. We'll pop in here. I know I went live a couple of times. Okay, so here is, right, I got an email saying thank you for applying, and I also got an email saying please approve this account. So I can go in, I'm going to set this account to active. Okay, which will generate another email to get dropped out to the person who applied's email, which in this case is me. So this gives me a link that I can go to over here. And when I go to that link, it will let me log in and set a password here. All right, so that is saved. And now I am logged in to the wiki as my as the account that I just created, right? I am now test user 3. Um, so I've been keeping a pretty close eye on emails as they come through to approve accounts and stuff. So you shouldn't have to wait terribly long unless you create an account like in the middle of the night or something. Then you might need to wait for me to like wake up in the morning to go approve it. Laura also has approval rights. As long as we can sort of determine who folks are, we're approving accounts. Um, that includes like doing some like Facebook sleuthing sometimes to try to see who people are, or at least make sure that, or like Googling email addresses to ensure that the people creating accounts are real people. We're not getting any bot requests. There should be some stuff in place to stop that, but you never know. Technology's not perfect. So, all right. So we are logged in here. So also there's can go to spam rather easily. Um, the sort of it's we've been working on a way to hopefully get it to not go to spam for people basically automatically, but um, I just like check your spam folder. Is pretty much it. So, and if people are running into issues, I'll make a note here. Actually, while we're on, I'm just gonna hop into the Discord, and under Wiki help, I'm just gonna put a note here that says check your spam folder. All right. Okay. So I'm logged in. I'm a person. I have an account on here. Um, so make sure to go through and read the code of conduct. I know that it's sort of long, and there's not really an annotated version of it. It's important to us that everybody just sort of reads this document in full at some point, so that people know what to expect at the game. Right? We lay out like the core principles of the game. As far as like this is like sort of playing the game information here. We open up with our COVID policy and notes about general like topics that are prohibited during game, topics that the staff isn't going to use topics that the staff won't introduce, and that we're expecting players to not introduce either. Player bill of rights, like here are the things that you are entitled to. Here's the things that folks are not entitled to. This is our disciplinary guidelines and our disciplinary policy that we use. Hopefully it doesn't come up, but if it does, everything is written down here, and this is how it'll go. Notes on various unethical behavior, poor sportsmanship, expectations on physical contact, our substance use policy, and then some notes about model behavior. This is like how we're going to try to play the game, and how hopefully everybody else will play the game as well, to keep things fun and fair for everybody. Okay, so so I've made my account. I've read the code of conduct. Now what am I going to do? Let's go and create a player profile, and I'm not probably not going to fill these out. I'll make a character sheet so that we can make a page for it and see what that looks like. But actually, I am going to make one of these because there's a feature that I want to point out that you will not see anywhere else except on your player profile. So if I come in here to create a player profile, so I'm test user 3, and the rest of this I'm basically just going to leave blank. But we have places here for player pronouns so that staff knows how to address people. And as we are talking about folks, as we're writing plot for people, we want to make sure that we are already sort of getting it into our heads, how what pronouns folks want us to use, so that we are doing a little less learning as we're interacting with new players for the first time. Dietary restrictions and allergies, right? We use this for when we're doing meal planning. Any health concerns that folks have, any mental health, behavioral health concerns that people have, for us to know. This is all used for us to like write plot and generate content so that the maximum number of people possible can participate in things. And so if we're writing something tailored to a specific player or group of players, that we can make sure that we are including things that are going to be fun for everybody, and accessible. You can optionally include an emergency contact. That's someone that we would get in touch with if if something happens, if there's an incident during an event or something, you need medical attention. This is someone that we would notify. And then these boxes here are super important as far as helping us know what you would like to be doing at the game. So this is like when we're saying, oh, player Q is is okay with a fight but loves a puzzle, and then all right, we were thinking about putting some like locked boxes in like a module that we're writing that we know they're going to be on, but they super duper don't want to do that. So that lets us know like, all right, we'll do some fighting and we'll do a bunch of puzzles, but like this stuff is something that we will avoid. And that stuff can change over time, and I'll show you in a sec how we can. There's maybe a little more work that needs to be done for us to get there, but yeah. So the rest of the stuff, right, is interests, right? Maybe you're like, oh, like I've LARPed before. These are the things I know I enjoy doing, or I like things that are lighthearted. Like I really enjoy a lighthearted plot, and then you're like, but I don't like, I'm not interested in having somebody come out and yell at me. Like that just isn't a fun time for me. Breaks my immersion. Isn't a good time. And then if there's like, oh, this is like a thing I've always wanted to do, or this is a thing that I think would be really neat to get to do. Then you can put that here, and then any additional notes, anything else that you want us to know, or sort of clarification on anything that you selected above. This is the place to put it. And so you can preview it if you want, but it sort of gets spit out in this form. Then you have to like click this back button up on top there, but you can come down here and save it. And so when you click that button, you get this, and it's in red here because it's not published when you click that button. And currently the way for you to get back to it is to use this link up here. The way that this software defaults things is just it numbers nodes by a numerical integer index that increments by 1 every time a new page gets made. But soon there will be a page like that worlds page here, this one, right? This is like /worlds, and this is a list of, this is like an indexed view of all of the published worlds that are visible to this user type, which is just like the generic user type here, right? I'm not logged in as my admin account here or anything. We'll have one for and we'll actually have a shortcut bar up on the top of the screen. That's where it's going to live, and you'll be able to click the button and it'll take you to like the player profile list, and you'll only be able to see yours. You'll only be able to see ones that you created, I guess. So I guess if you had more than one player profile, which could happen, you would be able to see yours, and that you could use that to get back to your page, get back to your player profile page. So for now, I'm going to quickly go over to my admin account here, and I'm going to publish this real quick. So now if we come back again, and I reload this page, it's not in red anymore. Now it's been published. Again, not super important from your perspective, but so from here now there's two things that we can do. Let's say I've played a couple of events, and or maybe I haven't come to the game in a little while. Right, I've missed a couple of games, and maybe some things have changed. I'm feeling different about LARPing and the stuff that I want to be doing at game. Maybe my pronouns have changed. Right, you can come in here, you can click that edit button, come in here, you can update your pronouns. You found out that you're allergic to, I don't know, to something new, right? You're allergic to, I don't know, bee stings now or something, and you'd like us to know that. You can put that in here. Or if anything related to your physical or mental health and well-being changes, and you can update that stuff here. And you can update all of your preferences. And when you do that, when you update this, it will drop out an email to us to let us know that it was updated. So that's our cue to come back in and take a new look. We can take a look and see what's changed. And don't worry about this revision stuff. You can just sort of ignore it. Whether you check the box or not, we have the ability to go in and check the history of pages. So don't worry about revisions. But let's say you come back in and you're like, you know what, I'm not as interested in combat as I thought I was going to be, or I don't want to do combat anymore. But like, I started watching some YouTube videos on lockpicking, and I would like to start doing that. You can come in here, update this stuff, click the save button, and now all of this has updated here. It sends us an email. We can come back in here and look. So now the next time that we're writing plot for you, we can come in here and look, and we know there's not, you don't have to directly contact us. There's no whatever. You can just come into your player profile page, update it, and then we have this. We can query this information and pull it. If we're like writing a module for like 4 specific people, we can pull this stuff and take a look at it, and use that. And now the other feature that I'm going to do now too, and this is the only page that players will be able to do this. Players have permission on the wiki to delete their own player profiles. And so if you want it gone, if it's not set to be unrecoverable, I'm going to set it to be unrecoverable, so that if someone doesn't want us to have their player profile information anymore for any reason, you can click this delete button and do it again. It says it's not undoable. There is, that will delete the rows for that page out of the database on the back end. They are gone. So if for some reason you don't want us to have that information anymore, you can get rid of it, and it will be gone. We will not recover it. We will not do anything with it. So yeah, that's it's just player profiles, and just player profiles that you've created, right? That you're the author of, that you can do that with. So that's that. You come in, you create a player profile, you let us know, right, who you are, any details that we need to know, so that we can make your event comfortable and make sure there's food that you can eat and all that good stuff. Let us know what kind of content you're interested in. So now we have a player profile on the site. Now staff knows who you are. Now you can make a character, or a world. So you're like, okay, who the heck do I even want to play? So now you can come in to the worlds list here, and you can click through these worlds and go, okay, these are the worlds that are out there already. These are worlds, and these are all worlds that player characters can be from. There's some more that we're working on now. So if there's not something here that interests you and you don't want to write your own world, which is fine, then get in touch with us. Drop us a message, staff@travaillarp.com. I think it's all over the place. That email address is all over the place. You can also use the contact us form on the website. It also just goes to staff@travaillarp.com anyway. and let us know and be like, hey, I was hoping for like maybe like a steampunk world with zebra people, and you know, we can we can work something out so that you know you can play a zebra person from a steampunk world. We can we are happy to work with folks to do that sort of thing. But let's say you know you click through here and you're like, you know what, I like what I see. This looks fun. Looks like a fun concept. So now you've got something in mind. You don't want to create a world. You can jump straight to like your create a character page. And we just yeah. So that's a common question that we've been getting. So we'll jump here into the glimpse into the universe page. Um, and I discussed it briefly with someone on the Discord too in player questions. So the pitch is that um, the universe is a big place full of like a bunch of worlds. Um, and our hope is that as player characters come in for the first time, they're sort of like, they sort of get to be like the expert on their world or like where they came from in their world. If you like pick like a staff written world, right? You can still like make like a town or a village or something that you in that world that the staff didn't write, right? And there's a place in your character history to include that stuff. Um, so the game is starting just after this interdiction age is ending, right? So the astral interdiction is this phenomena. It's this wild event that occurred like about a generation ago, 30 or 40 years, where travel between worlds became impossible, right? Sort of just spontaneously occurred. This is like big mystery stuff, right? So this is stuff that we will investigate and learn about during the game together. If you want to play a character that's done some traveling prior to that, that's okay. Um, I would caution anyone wanting to come in and play a character who's like an expert on anything that's not sort of like their little purview of where they've been for like the last 30 or 40 years or less if they're not that old. Um, and that's just because there's going to be so much for people to know, and players to be we want players to own like wherever they're from, whether it's like a town in a place in a world that we wrote or like their own world that they wrote. um and so if you traveled in the past, that's fine. Or maybe you like, you know, we're popping around a little bit like right before you came like to the game because it's been, I don't know, we're like sort of being loose on timey definitions of stuff, but we're talking like weeks since like the interdiction ended, between the time that ended and the time like the first event starts, which is like player characters walking into the travail together. um maybe you did a little bit of hopping around right in those couple weeks trying to like sort of get your bearings on what's going on, or you did some traveling like way in the past. um Anything that's like that makes it so that your character, we don't want anyone to expect to be an expert or know stuff outside of like what's on the wiki and what's in their character history. um is really it, to let everyone be their own sort of expert and like talk about their worlds and stuff, the worlds that they're from and all that good stuff. So it's certainly a thing that people can do. It's just like if you're like, oh, like I hopped around to a couple different worlds before I came here, and people are like, oh, well, tell us about them, and you're like, look, I didn't spend a whole lot of time there, but like, you know, like I got some drinks in a tavern somewhere and like slept in an alley, decided that place wasn't for me. You know, or like if you want to talk about having very briefly visited like locations that are in the wiki already, like that's fun. um but also like there's been a couple of people that have asked about some very interesting concepts for worlds and characters, which is super cool too, and we're happy to work with people. So um there are some unique possibilities as well. If it's like if you're really struck by inspiration and you're like, oh, I really feel like the character that I want to play and explore like was able to, you know, do something weird during the interdiction age. Like you won't like be the only character that could travel between worlds or something, but like there's some interesting options that don't break the game lore and canon. Um, so that's some stuff. So basically, the options are like you traveled before the interdiction age, in which case you haven't been anywhere recently enough within a generation for things to still be familiar to you. Um, so you won't be an expert on those places anyway. Or you've done a little bit of traveling since it ended, and that's fine. And I would say like stick to locations in the wiki with that information that's there. Um, or if you want something outside of that, drop us a message with what you were thinking, and we'll do our best to work with folks to try to find something that is cool and interesting and fun. Because there's like the universe is a big place with all kinds of weird stuff going on. That's like one of like the rules, is that the universe is big and weird. Um, but also like once the game starts, the lore that folks will probably care about um, is going to be not related to any of this stuff anyway, right? Like you'll be learning about like new worlds that like player characters couldn't be from, where like nobody's an expert on them yet. Um, and Yeah, exactly. We want people to be excited about the stories that we're gonna tell together. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Universe is a big weird place. All kinds of stuff can happen. I don't want to like um yeah, well, right, exactly, yeah, and then that's yeah. All right, cool. So and so this is like our little bit of like what is the universe? The universe is a collection of worlds and the space between them and all kinds of weirdness. And then like what's a world? Like it's right, it's where people live, and we've got some examples. And then like the interdiction age is like a big one of our like big mysteries, right? There's like a couple of like big mysteries that are already seeded into the game here um on the wiki now. And so those are things that we are expecting people to ask questions about, that we will be introducing game content related to help people learn about these wild things that have gone on in the universe. Information about source as a special material, malevolent worlds, which are there's information here. I don't really want to talk about any of this stuff too much because we're going to be learning about it all together in a month. And then information about travel between worlds and how that's generally accomplished, and then a little bit about the Travail itself, how it's like this world that was created by the heroes of the Travail and all this good stuff. All right, so you come in here, you find a world, or maybe you don't find a world, right? And you're like, I want to make one. I think I want to make one. So you click on create a world. Brings you to this page here. Little brief introduction, right? These are some things to keep in mind while making a world. A list of resources here to help folks approach real world cultural inspiration appropriately. Um, and so I encourage people to click through some of these links if you're like, oh, like this is like sort of a real world idea that I was thinking about drawing some inspiration from or including. There's some great links here that you can go to and search, like this writing with color, their stereotypes and tropes. Has a lot of good information there that's just sort of readily available in an indexed form, to at least get everyone thinking about that. And then any kind of symbols that you want to use, take a quick look through the ADL's hate symbol database here, just to make sure that they're not included. Right, we don't live in a vacuum. There are symbols that were not harmful that have been appropriated by hate groups and used as hate speech and stuff. And just because maybe historically they meant something else, the modern context is important, and we don't want to include those in the game because it's just not appropriate. And so so on this page we put the whole sort of template up front to so that folks can read these and yeah, so folks can read these and sort of write in a separate document, right? The wiki, as you're filling out forms, isn't going to save your progress if you like hit the back button or the power goes out or whatever. And I also learned this lesson. I was writing one of the worlds in here. I lost about 1,000 words and had to go back and rewrite it because I'm like that. I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then I went to push Control T to open a new tab to go to thesaurus.com, pushed Control R instead, reloaded the page, and then it was gone. So so yeah, that is here. So you can so you can sort of write up all of your stuff in advance, right? Somewhere between like 1,000 and 2,000 words, ideally. If you go a little bit over, that's okay. But once we start getting into the like 2,500 to 3,000 word range, it's just sort of too much. We're expecting there to be details about worlds and people that aren't included here. And that's fine. There's also space like in people's character histories to write about that stuff. um, and that's great too. But if as far as like us being able to do things with these worlds from a writing perspective, because that's absolutely our intention, right? It's for player characters to write worlds that we're from, and then they will be included in plot. They will come up. It will be relevant. We need to be able to consume that and do something with it, and also have enough room for us to sort of expand, right? Um, so you can read through here, right, about all the different things and what we the content that sort of establishes a world, right? How big is it? What's the geography and climate like? Tell us about technology and magic. um, are they connected? What does magic look like there? What does technology look like there? um, so during the interdiction age, every world had like a weird thing happen. So this is sort of like an out of the ordinary, what's like a problem that like the world's been dealing with for the last 30 or 40 years, right? Tell us about like what, people that live there, how are they, what's like, in addition to not being able to travel to other worlds like everybody used to be able to, what's this sort of like additional challenge that was going on? um and then tell us about the peoples that live in the world, right? Any species that live there. Tell us about the humanoids, or tell us about, um, maybe you're like, look, there's people on this world. They are sentient, sapient gas clouds, and they live inside crystals in the chest of like a construct. And so when you make your costume for your character, you make this like stone or metal construct costume, and there's like a glowing crystal in the right in the middle of the chest or something, and like that's your character is the gas cloud inside the crystal in the chest of this thing, riding around its construct body or something. um there's a couple of sort of like, we want people to explore the idea of like what, right, like what can like an existence in a person be. um right, in like in Yersinia, um there's like the parasite or symbiote creatures that can like live as part of another body. um or you could be like a part of like the sapient disease that came to be in that world. That's like a, it's like a thing you can be. And we will tell all kinds of like wild ass stories with that too. So yeah, don't be afraid to just make it something that as staff we could also feasibly play, right? If you're like, oh, there's like a specific $1,200 prosthetic, this is what they all have. That's not helpful. We can't play them. We right, it's prohibitively costed, or a thing that we can't physically do, right? Or don't be like, oh, they're everyone is, all of these people are, um, you know, 6'5" or taller. Like that's not great too. Don't do that. And there's a list on the front page here, right? That's like, here's like our prohibited topics, right? Don't like stereotype anything based on any of this list of things, right? Including like, body shape and all that good stuff. um, right? No physical requirements to portray members of a species, including height, weight, gender, um, or absence of disability, all that stuff. Um, so yeah, and like it says up here, right? Make a world that's like designed to be fun, not just for you, but for everybody else at the game, right? Like write a world that's going to be fun, um, and and then just like be ready for some kind of feedback from us, probably, where we're like, oh hey, like this detail, like maybe we can just like tweak it in this direction because that'll help. And that's probably because we have an idea for a thing that we want to do. We're probably not being nitpicky about things. We're probably already thinking about plot involving your character and the world that you're from, um, to do cool things. Um, our goal is for everyone to own like a piece of the game, right? We want you to have like a thing that you own. You will have plot threads that like you are the determining factor in. Um, that's an experience that we want every player to have at Travail. Um, so let's say we go through, we create the right, we can click the create a world button, and it's all the same fields here, right? But we're going to ask you to list all the authors and editors, anyone that took a look at it. This is also so that if anything gets sent off to sensitivity readers and they do editing on it, um, then we can make a note here and we can credit them uh, in whatever form is agreed upon in our contracts with our consultants that we work with. Um, and then this inspiration field at the end, this is not a visible field to people. If we go to the worlds list and like go to your Yersinia and we scroll down, you'll see that it's not here, but it is visible from a staff perspective. Um, and what that does is if something does need to be changed, we will take a look at the inspiration for things and say, okay, what is it that this individual is trying to capture when they were doing this writing? And that will help us guide the editing process, right? Or we can pass that along to our sensitivity readers and our consultants and have them and say, hey, this is what this individual is hoping to do. Is there a way that we can accomplish that that's maybe, more appropriate or more respectful of the, of whatever the source of the inspiration is, right? um so that's why we collect that piece of information there. And it's not important. We don't feel that it's important to show to everyone, because we're trying to use it for any potential editing process. And we want to know what people are excited about for the world too. If it's like, oh, I really wanted, like, you know oh, I wanted boots to be really important in this world, so like boots are, it's like all boots. Then we can be like, okay, cool, like as we're writing, we can we can validate your writing, right? We can reinforce those ideas through plot and make it be the way that it was that like it was intended to be, right? The way that it was written. um so so yeah, don't be afraid to put stuff there. Also, don't be nervous about like other people looking at it and being like, look, like this is like, I base these characters on like Dragon Ball Z characters because that's like super fun and like a formative part of my existence. Like other folks aren't going to see it. And then it helps us look at it and go, okay, that's all right. Now we sort of know like where this is coming from or whatever. um okay, so now we've submitted a world. Let's say we've submitted a world, right? It will not show up in this list immediately because it goes to staff. It will exist in an unpublished state, um, which means that it will be visible to staff. It will let us know to go and review it. Once we've reviewed it and we've reached out to whoever submitted it and sort of done any necessary editing, then we will go in and approve the world. It'll show up in this list. um, and if other people want to be from it, they can do that. If folks don't want that to be the case, then we can talk about that too. But sort of the intention is right. We would want other people to be able to come in and do it too. Where we would discourage folks from coming in and sort of trying to like be like, oh, I want to be from this world, but like I want to change this or something. Like we're not going to do that. But we might say, okay, like maybe you're from like a settlement or a town like on the opposite side of the world or something, right? So there's like some commonalities, right, that are shared. Like these 2,000 words are a shared experience, and then but like the pieces that are in people's character histories are going to differentiate, who they are. So you can have a fun moment where like you know come into game and somebody else is like, you're like, oh, I'm from this world, and somebody else is also from there, and you get like, oh, we have like sort of a common thing, and then you can talk about talk about the similarities of your character experiences, and then also talk about some of what makes your experiences unique. um I'm gonna guess that going into the first event, most people are either gonna write a world or pick a staff world, or if there's like maybe a group of players who are working together on a world or something. um and then like probably in the future, like maybe when things are a little more established, people might come in and go and say, oh, well, like this is super cool too. But again, if people have concerns about that kind of stuff, we can also you know we can visit other possibilities too. But I encourage people to be excited to have other people interact with the things that they've written. I think it's going to make the game more fun for everybody. So you've written a world and it got approved, or you picked a world from somewhere else. Now it's time to make a character. So you can go to this create a character link. You come in here. This does require a sign in. Again, this is to prevent um, bots from coming in and generating characters. It happens more often than one might think. Um, little quick two-factor authentication here. All right, there we go. So, all right, this actually opens me to another link, but I should be able to do this. Let's see. Nope, doesn't like it. All right, fine. Sure. All right. So this isn't how y'all will see it probably. You will probably see it here, in on this page here. The intention is for folks to fill this out from here. We're not um, we're generally not going to expose this link, um, but I'll run through here quick. I mean, people have to log in anyway, but so you have to log in. You can record the email if you want. We're requiring people to put in their wiki user anyway, right? I'm test user 3. If we get a submission for without a wiki account on it, then there's not really much we can do with it because we can't make it available to anybody then. All right, so at this point, right, we're asking for player preferred name. That is the name that we will use to sort of identify your character sheet at check-in. In the player profile, we ask for a legal name specifically so that we can tie a person to a waiver, for our liability waivers, and our code of conduct agreements that we're going to have people sign, which is standard operating procedure for liability waivers for insurances. And we think it's important for people to sign a document agreeing to our code of conduct before they participate in events. And so, but here, preferred name, the name you want us to use at check-in. Whoever's running check-in won't have access to any other names than that. There'll be a place when you buy a ticket to say this is the character, right, that like a ticket's being purchased for, and then preferred names only from that point out. So we're gonna put test user 3 here. A place for your list pronouns if you want to. If you want to have them on your character sheet, that can be helpful for whoever's running check-in. But it's not a requirement here. Then your character names, right? So this is your character's this is your character's like real name, right? If like the omniscient force of the universe were to address your character by their name, like their like what would that be, right? So so test user the third. And then like, what's your character's preferred name, right? What's the name that they're actually going to go by, right? And this guy is Testy3. And then your character's pronouns. Know. This helps us when we're sending, like, if we're sending out NPCs to interact with your character or interact regarding your character, right? This is a place for us to have that information so that we get that right, just sort of from the get go. Also, if your character's pronouns are different from your own pronouns, this is a great place for staff to be able to visualize that quickly, and to help us get to know people and get to know how people would like us to refer to them. So if my character's pronouns are they, them, and are different from my own, now that's here. So now we can go to the next page. So here are some actual rules choices now. So persona, heritage, and vocation are basically the 3 rules relevant choices that you make at character creation. Your character's persona, and there's descriptions in the rulebook for all this stuff. So your character's persona tells us like what kind of person they are, right? What kind of character you want to be playing, right? If you're like, oh, like my character, their persona is rides a pale horse because I'm like the murder master. Then then like, you know, that's like I want a character who has a relationship with death in one way or another. And I want my character's plot threads ultimately to also deal with that idea. And these are all sort of varied, and so there's different ways to sort of interpret all of these, which is great. We want people to sort of read these, and the hope is to just like provide some inspiration. And we think that each of these also helps point people in a direction for their character that will help us write plot for them, and help us find ways to engage them with the world. So I guess like very light spoilers if you go through and like read deeply into all of this stuff, and then like there's special questions, you know, for folks to answer to, depending on what persona and heritage and vocation they pick. We ask you about those when you're making your character history, and so special questions for each persona to immediately tie you to these things in the world somehow. Again, to help us with plot writing. So let's see. Dances with the Infinite Stars has been a popular one thus far. Unsurprising, it's sort of cool. The space between worlds is going to be like a weird, cool thing. So that's a fun one. But let's let's go with Rides a Pale Horse, right? We're gonna test user the third is the murder master now. And so you'll want to make a note of these, and they'll be on the character sheets too. These also do provide a statistical bonus to your character. They provide you a certain number of abilities and or potential modifications to your character. So if you just want a specific set of stats too, maybe you pick those and then sort of model your character around that. You can also I like doing this, which is roll randomly and randomly generate your character's persona, heritage, and vocation, and make a character from that. I think that's super fun too. But yeah, there's options, right? You can pick based on flavor, you can pick based on rules, you can randomly generate it, you can do whatever you want. You can play the game as long as you're sort of within the confines of things. And this is a thing we'll touch on a little more in the future too. Like you can play the game. The game's designed to be played in a bunch of different ways, intentionally. So even from the character creation point, there you have options on how you want to play character creation. Let's see. All right, so we picked a persona. Rides a pale horse. It's going to give us some stat bonuses. I think we get. What does that give you? You get to like maim somebody, I think, and there's another one. Let's see. Spent too much time in the wiki, not enough time in the rule book lately. All right, so rides a pale horse. Yeah. Once per twilight, you get a maim. You get a melee maim. Cool. That's what I thought. All right. And that does have like a question too, and we'll get to that in the character history form in a minute here. Okay. So heritage, right? This is either related to like the person that your character is, or maybe something about their lineage, or like their origin, right? The like the people that they belong to. Um, so this could be one of those things. We have some elemental options here, right? Like Flameforged, Frostbound, Leavenstruck. We also have some options here that are like humble and inquisitive, um, that and generous. So like generous and humble are like pseudo player challenge versions where it's like if you want to be generous, um, then you get like you get 5 basic ability uses instead of 4, which is like sort of a big deal. But also like you have to give away at least half of everything of value that you ever receive, right? And it's not just like, oh, like I'll just give it all to my buddy or something. The intention here, right, is that you're like finding people that can use the things that you have, right? That's just like a part of what you're doing. So um and humble too sort of like limits what you can use your abilities on, but gives you like a bonus. And so there's stuff here that's definitely sort of combat oriented. There's also some sort of player challenge stuff here, if that's something that interests people. And So yeah, I'm interested in seeing how people apply these and sort of explain them in their character, right? Is it related to like training that your character did, or was it something that they were born with or discovered about themselves? Is it related to like maybe a choice that they made where they, you're a character from this elemental world, and you decided to bathe in the fire pools of whatever, and now your character is flame forged and has like fire abilities, right? um could be like any one of a number of things, right? Get real creative with this stuff. I talked about flame forged a bunch, so let's pick that. The murder master wields fire now. um, and so then we go to vocation. This is about what your character did, as not just like as an occupation, but like what did they do with their life before they got to the travail, or what are they still doing, right? And this is everything from like I was an academic, or which like I was like a professor at like a school, like could be like for kids. You could be a professor at like some sort of academic institute on your world, um for higher education, or something else entirely. Even like if you're like, oh, my character was like an instructor at like a trade school of some kind, then like they could be a laborer, they could be an instructor, they could be an academic, they could be there's options. And so explain it however you want. You can also like my character was like a survivalist, or my character's a tourist, right? They just spend their existence traveling, and that's what they do. um and so these also have sort of like statistical and additional bonuses and details that go along with them as well. So we can pick these. Let's see. This guy, this person is I guess that they're a survivalist. We're gonna go full murder hobo. um and yeah. um so there's a couple features here. I think laborer and tradesperson have like an additional question that goes along with them, um of because they start with like with ranks with levels in like one of the crafting specializations. And so if you pick one of those, like if we pick laborer here and we click next, it takes us to an additional context menu here because you get to start at level 3 of one of the 3 artisan specializations. um Otherwise, so like if I pick this and then I pick outfitter, and then I just need you to click level 3 because it helps fill in the form automatically. It fills out the character sheet automatically. And then you can decide if you want a copy of your responses or not. It'll send them to you in an email at whatever email address you provided. And yeah, so then we can submit this, right? Character's been submitted. We will embed this character in the wiki connected to the wiki user you provided. So when this happens, it sends us a notification. And then in a moment here, there it is. All right. It generates a character sheet that is currently not visible to anybody except staff. But I will show you what it's going to look like once that's in the wiki. So let me just a couple of clicks here on my end. Okay, so we do that. Then I'm going to hop on to my admin account. Do this. And this. Almost. Come on, you can do it. There it is. Okay. So copy that. There we go. Okay. And that. Okay, great. And now, one more quick detail. Do this. Save it. All right. And publish it from my end. All right. Going back to what I had mentioned before about how we're going to have a shortcut bar up on the top of the screen here that will show up for folks. I just have to get around to making it. It will be soon. Nobody really we only have a handful of like submitted worlds and player profiles right now anyway, so it's sort of lower on the priority list, but it'll happen this week. So up on top you'll be able to like go and view, you'll go to the player profile page where it'll show you all of your player profiles. You'll be able to go to a characters page where it'll show you all of your characters. Character history page will show you all your character histories. Anything that's attached to your account, anything that you're the author of, right? So when we make these character sheet pages, and this should show up here. Yeah. All right. So this is what you'll see. So here is a character sheet for the first time. You can see we've made some test character sheets, right? This is the fourth one that's been made. It's just a numerical ID that increments. And so we've got character name, character preferred name, character pronouns, player preferred name. We have a statistic here called potential, right? This is your character's level in their path, subpath, and their specializations. And then we can hop down here. This is where you will select them at check-in. You will check a box in the path columns here and a path in the subpath columns here to pick a path and specialization and a subpath and a specialization for the event. So that's there. Here's notes on how many ability uses of different kinds of abilities you have, right? Everybody starts with 4, 4, 2. And then you can see the persona, heritage, and vocation are all filled in here automatically. There's also down here, right, the outfitter specialization that we picked at level 3 because we're a laborer. And then progress. This is a field where you can record your progress towards the next level of artisan spec. So During the event, as you are crafting items and doing like the crafting mini games and making things, you can track right on your character sheet here or next to it, because this field's in reality is sort of small on the page. But you can track and be like, okay, like I did one of the tasks that I need to do. I've done 2, 3, 4. Oh, I did all 5. Now I'm level 4, and now I can reset my progress. Right. This does not, you don't have to wait between events or whatever. Your crafting levels can level up in real time as long as you meet the requirements. So the first couple levels will probably go sort of quickly. And then once you hit sort of like the level 5 or 6 range, things will slow down a little bit, and it'll probably take you a little while to get to like 9 and 10, which is by design. You also can sort of just like stay at level 5 or 6 or whatever if you don't, want to seek out rare crafting materials and all that good stuff. But crafting system designed to be very approachable. Our hope is that everyone's able to interact with it. It's very easy, um, and it is done during game in real time. There's no between game crafting. There's no between game info gather skills. We have a mechanic in the rulebook called Discover. And there will be, at the first event, there'll be the ability for folks to engage with that skill. It'll be very clear how to do so. And so all of those submissions are done during game. You pop them in the box, you fill out the paper and pop it in the box, and then you'll get a response from it the following event. And you'll have some options too on how exactly you would like to present that, which is cool. We encourage like magic user and devout primary path characters to perform like the ceremony or circle spell in order to do it, and then the following event you can do it again to get your answer, which is just like make it fun, do a fun thing with it. Also, if that's not fun for you, you don't have to do it, but it can be fun. You can make your own ceremony or your own thing to do for that. Beseech whatever forces are appropriate to your character to do so. Right? There's no one way to do things in game from like a lore perspective. There are very few, if any, things that there's like this is the only way to do it. There's some stuff that's like you'll need the same like game resources. Everyone's discovers like require some amount of characters and materials in order to perform, and it's the same across characters, but the way that you perform that and the way that it's accomplished can be unique across characters. So that's our artisan specialization information there. Down here we track prestige potential. So let's say my first event, I play path, fighter, brute. So I have my potentials 2. I get the first 2 levels of fighter, first 2 levels of brute worth of abilities, and I want to do a little bit of healing, and mystic seems cool. Want to explore a little bit of psychic. What the heck? And so I pick for my subpath and specialization. I pick devout mystic. So I take half of my potential rounded down, which is 1, and so I get level 1 in mystic and level 1 in devout as well. So I'll have four abilities from fighter brute, right? 2 levels in each, and then 2 more from devout mystic, 1 from the devout list and 1 from the mystic list. Now after that event, because you played fighter devout, you will gain 1 prestige potential in fighter devout. So for the next event, this will be a 1. And when you check in, if you pick any path or subpath in fighter or any of its specializations, and then also devout path or subpath, any of its specializations, you can also pick one of the 2 prestige paths for fighter devout. Their devout fighter is not different from fighter devout for prestige paths. It's the same whether you're path devout, subpath fighter, or path fighter, subpath devout. It's the same ones. And so now, because you have 1 prestige potential there, you could pick one of those 2. Either it's champion and I change the name. I only remember the old names. Fighter Devout. Oh, Champion Fate Sealer. Yeah. Fate Sealer. Fate Sealer's cool. That's a fun one. That's one of my favorites. But so you could pick that. You pick one of those, and you'll get one level, right? Because your prestige potential is one in that. You'll get the first level of that prestige path for an ability, which is a basic on all of them, right? Basic, complex, ultimate, attribute. Yeah. And so then after that event, it'll go up to 2. And now if you change and do another one, do a different combination of paths for an event, then you'll get prestige potential in that other one. So you do get access to a couple of extra abilities if you sort of stick with something and do it and play it a bunch. But also you can change, and like your total ability uses don't change. You have like a couple less options, but it's not like vital options. All of the like really important game abilities show up on like the core list, right? Like on Fighter, not like on Brute Slayer Vanguard, but like Fighter is like where parry shows up, so, and like Scoundrel is where dodge shows up, and Magic User is where like resist magic shows up, and Devout is where all of like the healing abilities show up. So even without any of that extra stuff, which is fun, and I recommend that people pursue that stuff because I think it's fun and cool, your character will never be useless. From game one, from the moment you walk in, you can do things that are useful, and are generally going to be doing a very similar number of ability uses to other characters in the game as well. So yeah, this is where we will track prestige potential, and then we get down to probably the most fun, most empty portion of the character sheet at creation. This is where we're tracking trials. So there's mention in the rulebook, right, in the advancement section, that there's a system in the game called trials that players can use to learn additional abilities that are not on these lists here. Our hope is that everyone engages with this system. It will be available to everyone. It will not be a mystery. There will be things that you have to do in order to engage with it. It will start on the simpler side. It will get to the point where things take you a long time to accomplish. That is by design. Getting additional abilities in the game is like a big deal. It's also a way to customize your character and have abilities that your character always has, regardless of what paths and specializations you pick at check-in. So you can get these add-ons that are these extra abilities that like sort of really help further define who your character is. So I'm excited for people to see this. And so this is the place where like your active trial goes here. It'll be a number. The whole system's going to be numbered to help us track things on our side. Your progress and whatever you're doing here, and then any trials that you've completed will go here in this list, and we might need to extend that out eventually for some folks. There'll be a limit to how many trials a character can complete before they sort of have to like drop stuff to go get new things. But I think it's going to take people a long time to get there. Like more than a couple years, several years of intense dedication to do that. And then once you do learn extra abilities, they'll go in this area here. Yeah, so this is the character sheet. This is what it'll look like. These will be printed and given out at check-in. The intention is for you to make notes during the event on any artisan specialization progress that you make, and any progress on your trials that you make. All of that is done on the honor system. You mark down whatever you did, and then we will update the character sheet in between games. We'll also use it to track your potential. Right, you get one extra. You gain one potential every event that you play up until you have 10. That's sort of like the limit on vertical progression, right? So after 8 games, there'll be 3 this year, 5 next year. You play every game this year and next year, you'll be at 10 potential on your character. And you'll also have 8 prestige potential in some combination of stuff too. You could end up with 5 and 3. You could end up with, I guess, I guess not necessarily 8, right? If you have 5 and you keep playing that combination, which you can do, could be fun. Then I guess you'll only have 5, but you could get up to 8 prestige potential in that amount of time too. And I don't know, maybe you're like, oh, I want to max all of these, right? Or not, I don't know. So yeah, character sheet. So that's out there now. You can see that it's configured so that from, right, I'm here in the test user 3 account, I'm able to get to this node. I'm able to get to the character sheet, and we'll be making a view in the shortcuts that will take you to your character sheets that are visible to you for any characters that you have. That will be soon, probably the next couple days. I'll get that up there. But also, we don't really have any characters yet out there, so become more important as time goes on. Then character history. Right, we have a form here to create a character history. This is sort of like the last thing that that folks will do, because it requires you to have requires your world, whatever world you're from, to be approved if you submitted one, and also requires you to have chosen your persona heritage vocation. So this is where you give us your character name, their home world, right? The world your character's from, and where in that world they called home. So you're like, I'm from Yersinia, and I'm from the Ant Hills, and I'm from this, the community of underwater basket weavers, right, in the Ant Hills. We ask you about origin, right? People and cultures that your character belongs to, lineage, but also choices that they've made, right? I was talking about test user the third and how they might have bathed in the pools of fire, right? That's like, tell us about that here, right? Tell me about bathing in the pools of fire and why they did it and what that meant. And then right, tell us about those factors and any impact it might have on their appearance. Maybe we also want to have a character go into game that's bathed in the flame pools at some point, right? And that way we can match that visual description, and right, reinforce your story by doing the same thing. Cultural observations that your character participates in, relations. So family, friends, and allies. Tell us about them. Who are they? Also, tell us if any of them are out of bounds for storytelling purposes or purposes of imperiling them. Right? Not everyone wants to deal with like family members that are in danger. Really anywhere in here that there's a thing that you don't want us to do or don't want us to touch or don't want us to use a storytelling element in plot, please tell us, and we will respect that without question. Tell us about your character's personality, goals that they have, their reason for traveling to the Travail. There's some options down here about that, right? Maybe they received an invitation. They don't have to know why they received it. If you pick something like having an invitation, we will give you a document at check-in of your first event so that you have a document with you, which could be a cool thing. Honestly, if everyone picks that, we're cool with that too. Everybody can pick it. We'll make a big old stack of invitations for everybody to have. And so here, you'll pick the persona that you chose during character creation. So in our case, it was rides a pale horse, right? And now there's a question that goes along with that, right? What's a terrible truth you learned about death that haunts you, and how did that change you? And so now we would be like, okay, this character has a connection to death, and like, what is it, and like, not just that, but like, right, how, like, what is it about like riding the pale horse that like, that haunts your character? And so this helps us like right? This helps us get into your character's head and get into their story, to work on those things. We go down to heritage, right? We had picked Flameforged, describe their connection to their heritage, right? Bathed in the flame pools, did the whole thing. We can talk about that here and like what it means, from a heritage perspective. We go down here to vocation. We had picked laborer, right? So we can talk about, right, specifics of your character's vocation and any relevant training that they had, right? So we can talk about how they were an outfitter, and that's like blacksmithing and a couple other related things like that. So we can talk about how that lines up here, if we want to connect that right to the outfitter, artisan specialization that they have, and then any other details here. So anything that wasn't covered in a category above, or if there's like a story or an anecdote or something that you about your character that you want to include, you can put it down here. Try not to be terribly verbose. We do have to read a bunch of these, and we would like to be able to include every. We like to be able to take into account every detail that people include. And if there's a lot of information, it's more difficult for us to do that. So it's sort of a double-edged sword of, giving us lots of information, but also, there's such a thing as giving us too much information. So, and again, if people have questions about that, we can, we're happy to sort of help guide that process. If someone's like, hey, like I wrote all of this, like, but is this too much? And we might be like, yeah, but like we really like focus. If you could like focus on these 3 details and like things that are not like plot relevant, like those details you can still have with your character. We just we need to focus in on like what, sort of like from a storytelling point, like what we can use to tell stories with. But the rest of it, right, provides context to your character and flavors everything in the way that like makes sense for your character. And once you've done all of those things and they are all published on here, which means that we've reviewed them, you are good to go. At that point, there's nothing else you need to do. I know this kind of seems like a lot. And again, if there's parts that people aren't as interested in doing for whatever reason, right? Like you don't have to create a world. You can pick one of ours to be from, or if you're like, oh, I was hoping there was going to be something like in look closer to like this genre or this idea, then let us know, and we can work on that. And also like with a character history, if you're like, look, like I have no idea what I want to do or who this guy is. I just want to like come and check out the game and see what happens and then maybe figure it out. Like then that's really okay too. We can get a you don't even have to make a character history. We would just ask that you let us know ahead of time if that's going to be the case. We want people to show up and have fun. That's like the important part. All right, so that was me talking for an hour and a half about the wiki and how to make all of your stuff. I haven't seen any new questions come through in a little bit, so I'll give it a minute and see if anybody has questions. And otherwise, did I have another topic for tonight? Not really. So I guess the other detail about the wiki is that it is not just for the things that we just talked about, right? These are the parts that are important going into the first event, right? Worlds that characters are from go in the wiki, right? They need to be approved. They need to be right. The staff needs to be able to look at them and, if needed, send them off to get reviewed by our consultants. It's where character sheets, right? It's where you're going to go to make a character sheet and view your character sheet. It's where you're going to go to create a player profile to help us write content that you want to be playing. And it's where you're going to submit a character history so that we can use that to start writing stories for your character as well. And so those are the things that are important for game one, right? There's also right a handful of pages down here, right? We looked at a glimpse into the universe real quick earlier. You can see here, right? There's a page specifically for the interdiction age, but it says, right, this page will be updated as more is learned, right? For now, everything known can be found here on the glimpse in the universe page, and the same thing for the travail, right? This will be the page for tracking all of the lore that's learned about the travail. Um, yeah. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I can talk about that in a sec. I'll talk about spellcasting. So all of the like big overarching world lore pieces of information that get introduced to the game will end up with an entry in the wiki. Um, so there will also be versions of this information available in the tavern at game. How exactly we'll do that, whether we have like a whether we have a tablet connected to the internet that is cleverly disguised as a book, or an actual printed form, or something, we'll figure that out over the next month. Um, but um, this stuff will also be available so that if it's like, oh, like, you're like, I just got source and I don't know what that means. If you like want to go look up the wiki entry for source, you can like go and do that, right? It's part of the like big high level world stuff. um what probably won't end up in the wiki, um and this is something that we can work with players on to allow them to create pages to track some of this stuff, um is like people's like plot that's specific to a character or to a group of characters or something. We probably won't put every detail of that in the wiki publicly, at least. Um, we want people to own those stories, right? Individuals and groups to own those stories. But what that also means is like if there's a plot where a group of characters goes on a module somewhere and they learn about a new concept in the universe, right? Or I should say a new concept that hasn't been introduced to the players yet, right? Um, that could carry an entry, a generic entry, right, into the grander scheme of things, right? Where it's like, oh, these characters discovered on this plot that you can use source to do this thing. That will probably end up back in the wiki. That it's like this is a thing you can do with source, right? Um, we're not going to tell everybody like what an individual story was. People can go back and tell people about it if they want that, and that's cool. But we're not gonna be like, oh, like on this day in this world at this location, these people made this choice and like did this thing. But if it's like, oh, you can use source to, whatever, levitate people like at a show to the point where you could pass a hoop through them, right? You can do stage magic with it or something like that. Will probably end up getting put in there. Um, so the wiki will also be that, and there'll be another section that sort of links and helps organize that, as that's available. I would not expect much more information than is in here now to be available before the first event, except for worlds. If there is, for some reason, if we do introduce something, we will be loud about it on on the Discord and on the Facebook. Um, but yeah, that is another thing that the wiki will get used for. All right, so the question about spellcasting. So in the rulebook, let me let's swap over here. There we go. All right, so in the rulebook, let's find a spellcaster. Let's just go to magic user. Makes sense. All right, so magic user. So in the rulebook, ability descriptions and ability names are the same thing, right? There's no where you go up. There's no entry somewhere for packet magic 2. Those are specializations. Here we go. Packet quick cast magic 2 damage, right? This tells you everything you need to know. So there is a little bit of a lexicon to learn, right? We have like our dictionary of game terms that we use. So any game effect can be magic, and once something has the magic descriptor on it, it's considered to be a spell, right? That's the distinguishing factor of whether something is a spell or not. Um, so you can see that this call here, and inside the double quotes are the actual game. That's the actual effect call you're going to make. That's the part you're going to say. Um, so here you can see magic 2 damage is the game call that gets made here. Any ability that's magic, that says magic on it, and we'll start with the most generic rule and get to the more specific ones. So anything with the word magic needs an incant in order to be used. Incantations are at least 7 syllables, starting with the word I, or if you're incanting them in another language, which you can do, it has to be either a real world language or like a fully fleshed out conlang, not like a gibberish language. So like if you wanted to learn like Tolkien's Elvish or Klingon or something, you know, I guess we could talk about whether those are like copyrighted or trademarked things to see if we could include them risk free. But you know, if let's say you are, you know, fluent in another language, or maybe English isn't your first language, and you want to do that, then awesome. I'm excited to have that be a thing that shows up. So any effect with the word magic in it, right? So this is magic 2 damage is what I would say when I throw my spell packet, right? It's a packet effect, magic 2 damage and throw it. Because it's magic, I would normally need a 7 syllable incant, and then I would call magic 2 damage. This is a bad example, but an important example because it has the quick cast term here, which means it does not require an incant. Also means it can't be interrupted because there's no incant, right? So to use this, you just say magic 2 damage and throw a packet. The second one is a much better example, right? This is a touch ability for magic fire enchantment. So this requires a 7 syllable incant followed by the game call, the out of game call, magic fire enchantment. It's delivered as a touch effect, and enchantment has to target weapons. So you would have to touch a weapon or touch a spell packet to a weapon or hover your hand over a weapon. That's like our touch mechanics doesn't actually require touch. There's no expected level of physical contact in this game. The expected level of physical contact is 0. You touch a spell packet to somebody, or you can just hover your hand over them. That's like enough to be right. It will be apparent. It also gets the point across that like you need to have a free hand to be doing a touch effect. So in this case, I would need a 7 syllable incant, right? I call elemental flame, magic fire enchantment. While I'm doing the portion that is I call elemental flame, if I get attacked, and we can go to this rule, then what I'm doing is interrupted. So where's the spell casting section? Let's find it. That's not the term I use for it. Interrupt. Interrupting and miscasting abilities. Okay. So magic type abilities have special rules listable in spellcasting. All right. All magic type abilities require an incantation to use. We also learned that quick cast, right, is a more specific rule than the more general one. So quick cast says you don't need an incant. Right, due to the verbal component of spellcasting, the silence effect prevents the use of these abilities. Silence prevents all game calls that have the word magic in them, even if they're quick cast, right? So the silence effect prevents you from speaking, from making verbal noise, let's say. Also prevents you from using any effect with the word magic in it. So The exact incantation left up to the caster, minimum 7 syllables, starting with the word I, followed by the out of game effect call, right? So I call forth a bolt of flame, magic 2 fire, I rack you with agony, magic short pain. During this incantation, your spell can be interrupted if you're subject to any harmful effect, regardless of source or if negated by defense. So what that means is that I have a spell packet in one hand, right? I'm making my incant, and my sword in the other hand. I'm making my incant. Somebody swings their weapon at me, and I block it. I have not been subject to a game effect. And the same thing, like if you're holding a shield, something has to make it to you, right? So the weapon has to strike your body without being blocked or deflected, or a spell packet has to touch you, or an area effect that you're inside of. And it doesn't have to work on you. If you're, if you reduce it or soak it or return or resist or parry or dodge, as long as it hit you, even if you completely negate it, it interrupts your spell cast. And so your effect is not used at that point, right? Effects are not used until the out of game call is made. And you need to make your out of game call, right, within 3 seconds of finishing your incant. So I guess we'll also say that. So for these purposes, let's see, what does it say? During this incantation, your spell can be interrupted. You're subject to any harmful effect, regardless of source, or if it was negated. Path. If someone is enchanted beforehand, and you have to call the effect, does that count when silenced? Magical non-offensive enchantments that would be negated. So the enchantment effect specifically is something that goes on a weapon that allows any called attack made with that weapon to include that energy enchantment with it. So if you receive a fire enchantment on your sword and then get silenced, as long as whatever ability you're using, right, would be a melee ability, and if it's magic then you can't use it, but if it's non-magic, just like melee 2 damage or something, then you could call either 2 damage or 2 fire. And there's a description on enchantments further in, but like specifically enchantments are like fire enchantment, ice enchantment, lightning enchantment, silver enchantment. Those are like the ones that are in the book. And so for enchantments, silence doesn't remove anything that's in place. It just prevents you from using things. If that makes sense. And if I answered your question, let me know if I didn't. So there's the dispel effect, and dispel removes things that are in place. So like silence prevents you from using new things. Dispel could remove a thing. Dispel would remove a thing that like is in place. So, and the dispel effect is like, so the glossary of like all the effects and stuff is here at the end. So if you're like, oh, there's no descriptions anywhere, they're all sort of here at the end of the book. So dispel could be like, you could get hit with a dispel, and if it's just the word dispel, it removes one effect that you have on you of your choice. So if you have like 2 temporary hit points and a fire enchantment and a bestowed parry, then you get to pick one of them and it goes. If let's say like you're fighting the bad guy who's vulnerable to ice, and he just watched your buddy enchant your sword with ice, and he's like, oh, I don't want any of that. He could like hit you with a dispel enchantment effect, and now you're going to lose your enchantment because you can only have one of each of these categories of things at a time anyway. And so you would lose you would lose the enchantment. So silence to prevent you from doing new things. Dispel doesn't only remove magic effects. Dispel removes anything of that category. Just sort of like to the term dispel like gets the point across. But yeah, that is uh, that is spellcasting in a nutshell. So 7-syllable incant. Then once you're like in the process of like making the effect call, no longer interruptible, right? Don't try to like smack somebody's hand out of the air while they're like throwing a packet or something. And incants are relatively quick, so for the most part, unless somebody is like on top of you, you'll be able to get them off. For regular spells, I guess while we're talking about it, let's go back to um, our lists here. Let's go back to our magic user. Um, cool. So you can see here at level 7, there's an ability, and the first word in the ability description here is ritual. So anything that is a ritual or short ritual ability um, requires an amount of uninterrupted time in order to complete the ability usage. So like this ritual touch magic refresh ultimate, you need to spend a full uninterrupted minute casting this spell. And it needs to however you accomplish this, right? And like you should try to like come up with your own thing, right? There's like what does like a 1 minute long spell for your character look like? You know, it could involve, you know, something from the world that they're from, or like the schools of magic that they're familiar with, or if they're like if they're not like a magic user, which is sort of like classically connected to like what might be described as like arcane magic, if they're a devout, and it's closer connected to like a divine magic, or like this like sort of internal power instead of like the manipulation of external forces. Like what do those things look like, right? And it should be a personal and unique experience when you do that. And generally this stuff takes time because you're producing some kind of like big important effect, right? You're in this case you're spending one of your ultimate skill uses to give one to refresh one for somebody else. So like one of your buddies just died and like your healer is out of ultimates, so they don't have any life spells left, and you're like, all right, well, if you guys can buy me a minute, I can give one of my ultimates to our healer so that he can resurrect this guy. And so now you've got like your own little game within a game where you get to try to defend your friend, your two buddies for a minute, so that they can get, you know, can get this like this refresh spell off. Now short rituals take 10 uninterrupted seconds, which is sort of a little more. Those are supposed to be the like difficult but still possible to do in combat ones. Right, 1 minute is a really long time in a fight, and you know there'll be times when you pull it off, but the sort of short ritual, right, like here on the erudite list, they get a short ritual packet magic 5 damage flurry. Now there's a lot of words in here, but basically what it comes down to is you spend 10 seconds preparing and like cast, culminating with an incant, right? And if as long as you had those 10 uninterrupted seconds, now you have a flurry, which is 5 uses of magic 5 damage. Also, the more specific rule here too, flurries of magic abilities make them quick cast automatically. And that got sort of keyworded into the magic flurry thing because this is already a very verbose description. But so you have 10 seconds, right? You're performing, you're pulling arcane power, you're drawing on whatever. Maybe you like have a scroll that you pull out to like read and do the thing to channel the energy. Once those 10 seconds are done, you do the incant, right? I call forth bolts of arcane might, and now you got your 5 packets, right? Magic 5 damage, and you get some of those. So that's like 10 seconds you're like behind the line of your friends or whatever doing the thing, and now the bad guys are like, oh man, like can we stop him? Or there's a bad guy in the back like doing his like evil chant of whatever is about to happen, and you're like, oh man, if we don't stop him, like he's about to do something real bad. And so that's, I guess, in addition, right, that also sort of comes into spell casting. There's other sort of like non-attack, right, non like direct like and non-spell rituals and stuff. So erudite also gets like this attribute at level 8 where if they have a minute, they can bestow themselves like a with like one of these other effects that's like sort of represents like spending a minute like studying your spell book or whatever, right, or the equivalent thereof. um and again, these but that's like that was like the inspiration for that effect, but I'm excited to see what people how people play that with their individual characters, right? There specifically isn't this like description of like, oh, spend 1 minute studying your spell book in order to gain a free use of one of these abilities. It's spend a minute doing whatever's appropriate for your character, and the way that they cast magic and where they're from, and then gain a free use of an ability. Um, so we're gonna have a list of like generic incantations for people to use too. And again, like right, like if people need like inspiration for some of this stuff, right? Like you can always sort of fall back on like, oh, like I study a spell book, I read a scroll, I, do something, right? It should just like be whatever you're doing should be apparent, right? You're like drawing magical sigils in the air. And like chanting, and then like, you do the incant and you're like, I call forth whatever, or like I, grant myself, I bestow myself, whatever. Um, and So we will probably next week. We're gonna go through some of these ability lists, and we'll do a little primer on what all of this means. Because there's a lot of words in here, but once you learn them, like you can just sort of look at it and like know what's going on, which is fun. And and the part that you have to say is always in double quotes anyway. So at the end of the day, if you're like, there's a lot of words here, and you're like, but at the end of the day, you're throwing, packets with a call of magic 5 damage, and it's 5 damage from a magical source. Um, and so yeah, I think next week we'll probably go over some of these lists, and will give me a chance to talk about like some of what they're designed to do too. So if you're like, oh, I'm want to play a character that's good at these things, we can help guide people toward, you know, um, toward like the skill use experience, because there's a lot of combat stuff in here. There's also some lists that are like that do some cool like non-combat or less combat stuff too. Um, and and yeah, so yeah, I'll give it a minute or two here for anybody to ask any last questions. Otherwise, we will wrap up here shortly, and then we can pick up again next week. In theory, YouTube will save this video and make it available for other people to watch. Um, and if not, I'll find a way to turn it into something for like the wiki tutorial for people, and all that good stuff. What else? All right, I'm going to stop looking at these skill lists, because otherwise I'm going to keep talking about them. I'm very excited to play this game with y'all. I think it's going to be a super fun time. All right, the crickets have it then. Thank you so much for everybody that tuned in tonight. I was really nervous that nobody was going to show up, or I was going to have like a half a dozen people and no one was going to say anything, and just sort of be proselytizing into the void about this game. So thank you so much for the people that showed up. I hope this was helpful. If anybody has questions or concerns about anything at any point in time, find me anywhere. Find me on the Discord. Find me on Facebook. Send an email to staff at travaillarp.com. I'm so excited to see all of the crazy worlds that people write, and all of the characters, and then just all of these surprises that we have in store for people, and the ways that we're going to tell stories, and it's gonna be a wild ride, and I'm just real excited for everybody to be a part of it. I'm also going to give a quick shout out to all the staff members that have been putting in a bunch of hard work as well. Uh, Colin helped me with setting up the wiki. We had originally gone with another platform, with another application, um, and it turned out that the um, it didn't have the security settings that we needed, and we weren't comfortable launching it. So we sort of called an audible at the 11th hour and switched over to a different piece of software instead, that which is the one we're using now. And they were so helpful in getting everything set up on the application server side, and getting, just anytime I was like, hey, we need this module installed so that we can make sure that email alerts go out to staff when new things get created and all that good stuff. um, just as it was always there, making it so that that piece of technology could exist. Without that, this is all submitting and moderating all this content is a mess. Um, so just a huge thank you there, and to the rest of the staff that's been working on writing worlds and reviewing stuff and being there every week for meetings with us. We are super excited to be at Decolonize and Discover Festival next week, next weekend. We're really excited to meet people and new faces, familiar faces, talk about this game with people, talk about, uh, things that we can be doing in the New England LARP community to be better hosts and better stewards of the hobby. Um, and to get to share some of the a little taste of the wild storytelling that we're going to be doing, and some of the activities that people can look forward to engaging with at the game. And that's it. That's all I've got for tonight. I'm going to take these 6 minutes back to breathe. And yeah, if anybody has questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm looking forward to reading people's wild worlds and characters. And we will, we'll see you all soon. If not before then next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Thank you so much, everybody. And be awesome and be well, and have a great week. All right, bye.